I'm losing daylight, so hopefully we can get this done pretty quickly. Hey guys, it's Erin. Welcome back to my kitchen and my channel. Today we are going to be discussing something that is probably going to be pretty controversial. As you can tell from the title of this video, we're going to be discussing raw feeding your dog. Yes, I do raw feed Pongo, my 6-year-old Dalmatian. If you don't really know anything about raw feeding, it is exactly what it sounds like, feeding them raw meat and other dairy, vegetable products. Today we're going to be discussing myths, facts, and benefits while I prep Pongo's food for the week. Before I get too far into this video, I want to know what your opinions are. What do you think about raw feeding? Do you agree with it? Disagree with it? Do you raw feed? Do you want to raw feed? Does the idea of raw feeding sound interesting to you, but maybe you're not so sure how to go about it? So I always prep Pongo's food just because it is much easier than having to cut up this meat every day. And then what I do is I store it in Tupperware containers, and then I can freeze it, and then as I go through the week I can pull one out of the freezer. It makes the meat last a lot longer. It's just easier to do it all at one time rather than, like I said, making the meals like this every single day, twice a day. So I'm sorry if you are not a fan of seeing raw meat. If it does make you uncomfortable, I highly recommend clicking off of this video because this is all it's going to be about. So if I can do multiple things at once, we'll see. But as I am prepping his food, I'm going to kind of be discussing some things. I have like a little list here that I made just of different topics to kind of go over, and you can kind of watch how I do prep all of his meals. I'm going to be starting with just regular boneless chicken breasts. This is already open because I used a couple of them for dinner, and I'm not even going to use all of them today because I'm going to leave a couple left over for ourselves. Before I get too far into it, I do want to wash my hands real quick. A big thing with raw feeding is cleanliness. You are handling raw meat with your hands. So what I do is I always wash my hands beforehand, always wash my hands afterwards, and then when I do feed Pongo, if I touch the meat, I wash my hands again, and I wash his bowls after every feeding because I don't want any sort of like bacteria or anything to get built up, because like I said, it is raw meat. So let's get started on my little list here. Oh, before I get too far, if you enjoy this sort of video or you are interested in other animal videos, don't forget to like and subscribe. So I'm gonna get started with the myths of raw feeding. Like I said before, raw feeding, I'm gonna try to make eye contact, but I honestly might be looking down a lot, so I'm sorry. There are a lot of myths surrounding raw feeding. I think it does freak people out because raw feeding is kind of weird to a lot of people, but honestly, dog kibble wasn't even invented until, I don't know when. I'll put the year somewhere in here. I know it wasn't invented that long ago. Before that, all people did was feed their dog raw meat and scraps. I'm gonna leave a couple of these in here for me to eat later. They didn't really care too much about nutrition back then, so usually it was just kind of whatever was laying around. So one of the myths that people get so freaked out about are the bones. So when you are raw feeding, yes, you are feeding bones as well. I don't have any chicken wings today, but sometimes I do end up feeding him chicken wings, and I know some people are like, whoa, you cannot feed your dog chicken wings because the bones will splinter in their throat and it'll puncture their organs or whatever they say. So the thing with bones is they're actually really healthy because it helps give them like extra calcium and stuff and helps clean their teeth. But the thing with bones is when they are cooked, they do splinter. So the reason that you were told never to give your dog chicken bones is because they are cooked. So generally, you don't eat raw chicken and have leftover bones laying around to give it to your dog. I'm guessing every single time you have chicken bones laying around, it's because you had chicken wings and they were fully cooked. And so the reason people get so freaked out about the bones is because cooking them dries the bone out, and it does make it splinter. Feeding your dog cooked bones is very dangerous, but raw bones don't split, especially chicken, doesn't splinter when it's raw. It has all that moisture still in it, and it's more bendable, easier to digest. I'm gonna make a bowl for him for dinner tonight. But they're bendable and they're easy to digest, and they're actually really healthy for the dog. When you raw feed, you're supposed to actually give them about 10% bone material. And if you still are uncomfortable feeding bone, there are other alternatives. You can do bone broth, eggshells. You can even, if you have like a meat grinder, grind the bone up in the meat so that it's not a whole bone. Those are alternative ways to give your dog the calcium that they need in their diet. All right, so next up I have got, I should have showed before I opened it, chicken gizzards and hearts. Yummy. That's what you wanted, is a nice chicken heart for dinner. That actually brings me to the next part of my little spiel on popular raw feeding myths, is that one myth is that you're just feeding like ground beef. Like you just go to the store, you buy ground beef, and that's all your dog eats. This is so, I don't like the chicken hearts, they do gross me out. That is horrible for your dog. The big thing with raw is variety, variety, variety. I try to buy something different every single time I go to the store. And the reason is you really can't get one perfectly rounded meal when feeding raw. Like right now, with what I have, is not gonna be every single thing he needs in his diet to be completely healthy. So the thing with raw is it does balance out over time. So today I have chicken hearts, chicken gizzards, chicken breast, pork loin, and chicken feet. But next time I might get some beef or maybe some turkey neck, different things. That way he does have variety in his diet, so that it does all balance out in the end. So no, you're not feeding just ground beef. It does have to be like a whole mixture of a bunch of different stuff in their diet. And some people do only feed meat. Dalmatians actually need a special diet. So Pongo doesn't just get meat. He also gets eggs and cottage cheese and vegetables and other things in his diet as well. Let me see if I can even this out a bit. So now we're gonna move on to the pork loin. I usually do a lot of like just regular chicken, and I do a lot of chicken and pork, also a lot of fish as well. So like salmon, cod, stuff like that is really good for their skin and coat. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Shit, I have an extra one. I have an extra one. Let's put it in there. Okay, and next topic is bacteria. And then this item is chicken feet. So I need to start talking faster, sorry. So with bacteria, I know that's another concern for a lot of people, and that's why I mentioned the hand washing and stuff like that. Dogs don't have the same digestive tract that we do. Their digestion is much quicker. That's why a lot of times especially like with puppies, if you feed them, then they have to like poop 30 minutes later. They have a much quicker rate of digestion. Their stomach acid is also much higher than ours as well. So they can handle the raw meat and whatever bacteria people get worried about, whether it be like E. coli or salmonella or whatever. Dogs are built to eat like this. I mean, I think a lot of people forget that dogs are descended from wolves, and so wolves don't cook their food in the wild. Like, that's not even a thing. They eat raw meat. If anything, our dogs are better off because they actually have like better grade meat. All of my stuff is human grade. I realize that people probably don't believe that chicken feet can be human grade, but they are. Some people do actually eat chicken feet. So all of it is safe. Nothing is weirdly contaminated or whatever people get so freaked out about. I've even like read things on Raw that people think it's gonna turn your dog into a killer because they have a taste for blood. It's like, that's not even a thing. Like, why would you even think that? I'm sorry, like, people might be offended that maybe somebody out there actually thinks that, but like, that's not, why would you think that was a thing? You think your dog's gonna turn into a killer because you gave it a raw chicken breast? So next I want to talk about like the benefits of feeding raw. Obviously, as I said, it is a lot healthier as long as you're doing it correctly. As I stated before, you have to make sure everything's balanced out. So, you know, right now I have a lot of chicken and then some pork. So next time I might do a little bit more beef and maybe some white fish, might get some tripe, different stuff like that. You always have to mix it up. You cannot just feed the same thing every single time. But when you do have it balanced out correctly, it is much healthier for your dog. It's a lot more natural. There is none of the fillers, none of the garbage you find in kibble. Before I was feeding raw, Pongo was eating a high quality kibble. So I think we were paying over $50 for a 24-pound bag. And he was only eating 2 cups a day, which was less than what the bag even recommended for a dog his size. And I could not keep the weight down on him. We were hiking, we were active, we were doing everything, and I just could not keep his weight down. Ever since moving over to raw, I feel like I have to feed him more and more to keep his weight up because he is not getting into any of the junk or fillers that he doesn't need. And so he's just so much healthier and he's lost a lot of weight. And I'll put some comparison pictures up here between when he was being fed kibble and now that he is being fed raw. We've been doing raw for about 6 months now, and I've been so happy with it. Some other benefits include, you know, increased energy and mobility because you are feeding a healthier diet. If your dog has allergies, raw is a really good option because you know exactly what is in the food. If your dog, you know, is eating a bunch of different kibbles and still struggling, it could be something just weird because I know kibble has a lot of like ingredients that you don't know what they are down like at the bottom. So if your dog does have allergy issues, this is a really good alternative because you know exactly what is going into the food. And then another really good thing about feeding raw, and this sounds really weird and maybe really gross to some people, but their poop is almost non-existent. So when he is feeding kibble, his poop is rather large and it stinks, especially because he was eating a fish formula, which I think can help contribute to that stink, like the smelly fish smell. Now that he is feeding raw and there's less fillers, his body is absorbing almost all of the nutrients, everything that he is eating, and his poop, I'm not even like being over dramatic, is 1/4 of the size that it was before. So it's much easier to clean up, especially since I live in an apartment and I have to use bags and pick it up with my hand. It is so much nicer because it's more of like, it's a lot smaller, it's drier, and it doesn't stink as bad. So the poop factor is like a huge deal for me. Some people might not care, but I do. And then overall, their skin and coat gets a lot healthier and a lot shinier. They tend not to shed as much, just because they are eating a healthier diet. Okay, so my video just shit out on me because I ran out of space. So I'm kind of backtracking a little bit. I'm hoping I don't repeat anything. But the one thing that I did add in here that unfortunately I cannot backtrack is I did add a plain raw egg, and then I took half the shell. So after I split the egg, I crumpled up the shell and put that in there as well because it does add extra calcium to his diet. And I'm sure there's other benefits to raw as well, but those are just the ones that I've seen in my dog. One thing I do want to point out is Dalmatians, if you do not know, which I'm sure most of you don't know this, Dalmatians do require a special diet. They have a lot of issues with urinary stones, so they need a diet that's low in purines, which all food has, but organ meat has a higher purine count, I guess you could say. So he can't have anything like liver or spleen or kidneys, which are often fed when it comes to raw food. So what I have to do is I have to supplement his diet with something else. I know it's super common for people who feed raw to feed eggs, but I also have to supplement his food with things such as like cottage cheese or cottage cheese, and plain Greek yogurt. because dairy has almost 0 purines, and so that'll kind of help balance out and supplement the food that he has. I already gave him cottage cheese this morning, so I'm not gonna add that to this bowl here, but I am gonna add these little ice cubes. So what I do is I, just for a little bit extra, I freeze these ice cube trays with like veggies. I don't know if you can see them, I just don't want them to fall out. So like this one is a carrot and cauliflower mix. And this one here is a broccoli and just various greens mix. And so I just pop a cube of each in here. And what I do to make these is I blend up various vegetables. I try to find vegetables that are lower in purines, but in general, vegetables themselves are much lower in purines than meat is. So I don't have to worry about that too much. But I blend these in the blender with some bone broth. The bone broth adds like a little bit of extra flavor, and plus once this is defrosted and it's liquidized, it helps everything mix in a much better. If your dog is great at eating their vegetables, that's awesome. All you have to do is just throw the vegetables right on top. He's really good about eating fruit, but not vegetables. So I blend them in here and add that bone broth for a little bit extra flavor. So that way he does get his vegetables still, even though he's a little turd. So what I'm gonna do is, now that his meal for tonight is complete, I am going to put these in the freezer, put everything back, and I'm going to feed him. And as I said before, after touching the raw meat, you wanna make sure you wash your hands really well. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed this video of a little bit about raw feeding and why I raw feed my dog. I'm going to give you another little trigger warning. So next time I'm going to actually feed him his meal and film him eating. So if that makes you uncomfortable, definitely recommend heading out of this video now. But I'll see you guys next time.